Hey guys, it's me again. I wanted to do a little lighthearted video today as opposed to some of the other stuff I've made. I wanted to do books that I've read and maybe make this like a little series or like a reoccurring thing where I share some of the books that I'm reading, have read, books that I really enjoyed that have helped me in some form or fashion, and just kind of do like little mini reviews. I've always been a little bit of a reader. I've always gone like in and out though, just with like the change of pace of life, but I've really gotten consistent with it lately, especially because with being a Christian now, it involves reading the Bible. So it's just implemented that like reading again for me and made me want to read more. Obviously, first and foremost, the Bible is the book. All of these are just to help enhance that or help me understand it more, or just different perspectives and whatnot. Today I picked out 4 books. So sorry. And I'll just like a quick brief overview of them. And yeah, let's get into it. First book that I picked is this. It's a really short read. It's called Wonderfully Made by Allie Marie Smith. It's Discover the Identity, Love, and Worth You Were Created For. I feel like this is a book where I go back and reread and re-reference and go through again, because after each chapter it kind of like has something for you to reflect on, and then like a prayer that goes with it. I didn't stop and like answer every single reflection thing, so that's why I feel like this is a book you can go back to, because when I first read it I just wasn't in the space to want to like break down, because I've done a lot of healing work and counseling and going through traumas and everything. I don't feel like going down the deep rabbit hole of healing all the time, but still such a really good book. So I feel like you can get the full experience out of it and do all of the reflections and really go slow, kind of like a study. Really take your time with it. I feel like this would be a great book for like a women's group, which I want to propose at some point, and I'm pretty sure somewhere in here it is said you could do this with a group. I think majority of the books, if not all of them, can be done with groups. I think that's said for any book, honestly, especially Christian books. I feel like they should be with alongside another person or a group or a church even, just so that you're sharing the experience with someone and getting feedback and sharing your feedback, just making it a little more fun and easier to work through a book, because there are some like heavy topics in this. She shares her story with like how she came to the Lord, like her battle with depression, and don't know what words are sensitive on YouTube. Unaliving attempt. So she talks about heavy stuff like that, and then the identity of being a woman and how that's like different for every woman. Made by God, made to know God, made for a relationship with God, made in the image of God, made with love and wonder, made to glorify God, made to bloom, made for beauty, made for something more, made to live forever, made to live fearlessly, made to walk worthy, made to be redeemed, made to belong, made for friendship, made to preserve, made for such a time as this, made for soul care, made to create, made for forgiveness, made for sexual wholeness, made to live wisely, made to be present, made to rest, made for an outward focused life, made for a mission. I really like the outward focused life. That's like a huge theme to me right now, especially with like the culture that we're in, where everything's like so me, self-obsessed, what I want, my truth. What I'm learning with like Christianity, everything is dying to yourself and living for something beyond you and taking the focus off of you. And I feel like a lot of problems stem in us and like in society when we're so focused on ourselves and going inward and doing this. I think there's like a healthy amount of self-observation. Really just calls for different people. Like some people do need to do some self-reflection and they lack that sense of self and honesty with themselves and how they're treating other people. And then people like me, on the opposite end of that, I've spent too much time self-evaluating, and so a lot of things with like practicing the way, if you will, is a lot about less of me, more of God. Less of me, more of him, you know? So she talks about in here, outward focused life, made for a mission, made to be faithful, made to be transformed, made to worship, made to live fully alive. Definitely recommend this for the ladies. I think this is awesome. Okay. This page that I just opened to. Our world promises that self-love will cure our sense of insecurity, but what we really need is love greater than the love of self. It's like a great paradox where obviously there, yet again, healthy balance of like truly loving and respecting yourself, but in that you can love others, serve others, and it's fulfilling. Helping others, it like fulfills you at the same time, which is what I love about like the Christian walk, is serving something other than yourself and serving other people, but still which will transition to me in the next book. So definitely recommend this. This book, I cannot talk about enough. This is Practicing the Way, Be with Jesus, Become like Him, Do as He Did. Now, this author, after I read this, I've heard more and more about by a ton of different people. I actually have one of his other books that I'm about to start, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I just finished this today, so I'm going to start that one after. I was going to get up and get the other book, but I think I'm going to wait to put that in another video. I'll just start with 4, and then I'll add that one. But it's called The Common Rule. But I think when I do another video on books, I'll add that one in there because that book is amazing too. They all kind of had that similar theme of slowing down and like just recentering yourself and your life and your habits around like a slower lifestyle. This book taught me so much, gave me such like a great perspective on what living for the Lord is like and what being a follower of Jesus is and how to do it and how to like daily practice it. And it definitely gave me like such a fresh perspective, talking about how Jesus was a rabbi and what that meant to follow him like as a student and like a teacher dynamic, really looking at how he lived and replicating that and living like him, not to become him and not to become God, but to be in his image and to follow him and to live like him, portray ourselves in the way that he did. And I like in this book that it talks about the question isn't, I'm gonna butcher it, like, are you being formed, but what are you allowing to form you, or something like that. I probably should just find it in the book, something along the lines that like we're all being formed by something, we all identify with something, we all like worship something in a sense. It's kind of evaluating what it is, what it's doing for your life, and etc. So this basically breaks down like worldly things that people idolize and worship and follow, whether they're aware of it or not, and then like what the lifestyle of worshiping and believing in and following Jesus is. And this book is just, and I think this is really good too if you're already a believer and like really strong in your faith. If you're like me, still new to it, obviously like I'm a believer, but there's still like, especially in the world now, like there's just so many constant opinions and different lifestyles and all these different lives, and it's like really hard to feel firm in something sometimes, especially with how different I lived before as I am now. It's really hard to just like feel clear and firm, strong in the faith at all times, because like the world is just so not biblical anymore. So it's like hard navigating that. So I feel like this is really good if you're already firm in your faith. And also like he talks in the book as if you're just now considering like becoming a Christian, weighing out the different options of like the cost of following Jesus and the cost of not following Jesus, and how this being a Christian is one of the hardest choices ever, because you do have to die multiple times to yourself. There are lots of deaths. His whole like paradox that he talks about is like you go through this death that leads you to life. So I think it's really cool if you're questioning or struggling with your faith and your beliefs and everything. I think this is an amazing book for literally anyone to do. And he also recommends, yet again, doing it with a friend, doing it with community of some sort, having someone to reflect with, just because there is a lot in here. The book is incredible. I literally just finished it today. I blew through it, which I tend to do that a lot when I read. I feel like I just like read super fast. It's not that I'm not getting anything out of it, like I'm really feeding my spirit as I read it, but I definitely plan on going back to certain books after I read them. I just get so excited because there's so much that I want to read that I'm like, okay, what's next? But this one is definitely one of those where I had to read it and I'm like, dang. Take a picture of it to send to someone and be like, bro, we gotta talk about this because what the heck. Super good. Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis. I love C.S. Lewis. Mere Christianity was, I think, the first book that I read when I became a Christian, because it was just like what I heard about the most. When I first found it, I listened to it as an audiobook, which was really nice, but then I was like, no, I need to physically read this, let it sink in. So much wisdom in this and such good insight. And I think, like, I've heard people say it before, but I agree, like Mere Christianity is for people who tend to be more analytical, intellectual. He answers every single question I think you could think of. Of course, there are like endless amounts of questions that I could think of, I'm sure people who are doubting or questioning could think of, but he hits on like all the ones. When I first became a Christian, I was like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I just didn't feel satisfied with the answers. I read this and I was like, because he breaks everything down. The law of human nature, objections, the reality of law, what lies behind the law. We have cause to be uneasy. breaks down what Christians believe, Christians' behavior, beyond personality, first steps in the doctrine of Trinity. I like his story too, because correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure he was an atheist before, and he became a Christian like really later on in his life. And I know he does like other writings that aren't Christian either. He's just like a really good writer. Yet again, another book that I want to reread. As my perspective changes and strengthens as a Christian, I feel like this could help a lot. Okay, and then the last book for this video, I'll end on this. This is more, I would say, a little lighthearted, less like teachy and preachy, just like telling her testimony. It's called The Most Beautiful Disaster: How God Makes Miracles Out of Our Mistakes. This was actually a gift from my sister for Christmas, and it's this lady, Hope Carpenter, telling her testimony about out of her brokenness, God made something beautiful. And she tells about how she was living like the dream life basically, but was still... So sorry, I just got a call about my job. I basically talking about how she had like the really good life and everything, and how there were still underlying things she was dealing with. Blew up her family dynamic and her church dynamic and everything, and a whole 180 in life, and how God met her there and mended her whole life and had like a really good redemption story. So this is just more lighthearted, but still really relatable, because it has like themes of mental health things that she was struggling with, and dealing with trauma, and just like unlearning and relearning things, and allowing God to like come in and mend certain areas in her life that were hindering her and her marriage and her family and her church and everything. So those were the book recommendations that I have. More of like, I don't want to say lighthearted because it's her life story, but like sit down read. And these are more of making you think lifestyle, really like deep reads. And then I would say this is kind of in the same vein, but I don't know. She's just like her own little thing. Good self-reflection things, like really deep emotional things, healing things. Definitely geared towards women. These are my book recommendations. I already have like a queue of other ones that I want to do for another video, but I didn't want this video to be an hour long like my other videos. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you have any book recommendations as a Christian that you think would be good for me to read, I now know like this author is someone who I should get into. Obviously I like C.S. Lewis, but if you have like specific book recommendations, let me know. And yeah, hope you liked it. Bye.